On August 13th, 1975, around 1:15 a.m. in the morning, Air Force Sergeant Charles L. Moody, then age 32, was watching a meteor shower in Alamogordo, New Mexico. All alone out in the desert, Moody was enjoying a peaceful night when suddenly he would spot a bright, metallic, dish-shaped object heading toward the ground around 300 feet away. What happened next would change this man's life forever. In today's episode, we will examine the alien abduction of Air Force Sergeant Charles Moody. On the night of August 13th, 1975, as the unidentified flying object headed down toward the ground, it began to wobble until it was around 20 feet off the ground. Moody would later describe the craft as being about 50 feet long and 20 feet wide. Then the craft began slowly moving in Moody's direction. A frightened Moody ran and hopped in his car. However, when he tried to start his vehicle, it wouldn't start. As the craft kept coming, it reached about 75 feet away from Moody. He then heard a high-pitched screaming noise, and as he glanced up, he saw a rectangular window in the craft. He looked in and saw shadows that resembled humans. The humming then stopped, and Moody felt numb all over his body. He would then look up, and the craft flew off into the sky. Still, something didn't feel right about what had happened. Regardless, Moody was finally able to start the car and sped home terrified. When he arrived, he was stunned to see what the time was. It was now 3 a.m. Moody had sensed something was wrong driving home, but now there was an hour and a half of unaccounted time that night. He went to bed still frightened and woke up the next day with severe back pain. A few days later, a strange rash broke out all over his body. Moody would speak with a doctor who recommended trying self-hypnosis to see if he could uncover what had happened to him. Self-hypnosis is said to allow the mind to relax and remember events. Moody would practice self-hypnosis the next few weeks, and what he discovered would leave him stunned. On the night of August 13th in the desert, Moody recalled that as the numbness first came to his body, he looked out the windshield and two beings began walking toward his car. The creatures were around 6 feet tall and wore something black that was tight-fitting, resembling a wetsuit. They were able to grab Moody, and soon after he passed out, he woke up inside the craft and was on a table. Moody was paralyzed and couldn't move. The aliens stood around him, with the leader by his head. There were 3 total. The leader wore white and was shorter than the other 2, being around 5 feet tall. All had similar features, such as large hairless heads, a big roundish eyes, small ears and noses, and very thin lips. The leader was whitish gray, while the others were a darker shade of gray. The leader asked Moody telepathically if he was ready to start behaving and stop fighting. Moody agreed to stop fighting, and the being touched his back with a metal stick, which stopped the paralysis. Moody was then taken around the craft and shown different parts. The being showed him the engine room and explained that the ship operated using the principle of positive and negative magnetic poles. Also, they told him that they had a huge mothership and there were many other races of aliens who were observing and studying the planet. The beings warned him against the use of nuclear weapons as well, something we've seen in many other cases. Strangely, Moody was promised a future meeting with the beings, but was warned that contact with Earthmen would not be attempted for another 20 years at least. During his tour, Moody was told the mothership was miles away from Earth, around 400 miles above in space. Moody would also be told one day the beings would reveal themselves to the people of planet Earth. They then told him he would forget the incident, but his memories would return in about 2 weeks. The leader then placed its hand on Moody's head, and he would next wake up in his car. New Mexico is said by many to be the UFO capital of the world, home to the most famous UFO event in history with the Roswell incident. The state also possesses some extremely remote areas and mysteries. These include legends of a secret alien underground facility named the Dulce Base. In addition, a strange humming sound only some people can hear comes from the small town of Taos. Only around 2% of people can hear it, and the source of it has never been discovered. New Mexico has a long history with UFOs and unexplained phenomena, and the Moody incident is one of the many strange cases that have occurred in the state. So what do investigators say about this case? Like most of these cases, there's both skeptics and believers. Charles McQuiston, co-inventor of the psychological stress evaluator, indicated that he believed Moody was telling the truth. However, investigator Jim Lorenzen wasn't so sure. He noted there were a couple inconsistencies in Moody's story. For example, he initially said the beings said the mothership was 400 miles away. At a later time, though, it's reported he said the mothership was 6,000 miles away. One thing he questioned too is that Moody described the two beings who took him as frail, yet they were over 6 feet tall and able to pretty easily take Moody. However, we should point out that Moody estimated that the beings weighed around 110 to 130 pounds each, which surely sounds frail. In addition, the beings, although weak, probably used advanced technology in order to incapacitate and take Moody. So what can we make of this bizarre case? In general, this case has several interesting characteristics that tie to other cases. For example, the being's appearance is very typical of what other alien abductees report. In addition, the beings warning Moody about nuclear weapons and taking care of the planet is something we see time and time again with alien abductees. For example, on this channel, we covered the case of Amaury Rivera, and he was told by the beings the importance of taking care of the planet. Paralysis is another feature we also see in many alien abductee cases. It's unclear whether Moody was ever contacted again by the beings. He was 32 when this occurred, so if he's alive today, he would be in his early 80s. That said, it seems more than likely that he wasn't contacted. This is based on the assumption he would have reached out to a UFO investigator if he had another experience. Still, it's unclear, and it's very possible too he had his experiences and his memory wiped. One final interesting thing the being said was that there was multiple alien races visiting and studying planet Earth. With so many alien types reported, this doesn't seem that far-fetched. Still, it appears that something is stopping these beings from revealing themselves. Hopefully, though, these beings' intentions are benevolent and not evil.